So welcome, Chris Burch. Chris Burch is a solution architect visiting from San Diego. He's been in the industry for 20 years, where he started in casino gaming, and then he's worked with all sorts of airline partners, and now he works with some of our top streaming partners. So he's going to talk to us today about our relational migrator tool. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm from the Southwest Enterprise team, and so I'm actually the last presentation of the day. So after this, drinks are on me for everybody because I like this crew. But I guess the reason why I'm here today is because we recently did a survey of our enterprise customers, and we found that 60% of you have some sort of desire to reduce your footprint on major relational databases. But that study also showed that with a lot of migration projects that things usually either go over budget or sometimes they just fail altogether. So a typical conversation I have with a lot of my enterprise customers are usually around, Chris, we're on Atlas. We just went live into production with our brand new application. Everything's working great, but I still have 200 instances of SQL Server running out there. So the question that I hope to try to answer for everybody today is, how can we increase the chances of a successful migration? So introducing Relational Migrator. It's the brand new self-built MongoDB tool that's going to help customers migrate workloads from relational databases to MongoDB. It allows users to analyze their relational schemas, make decisions on how those schemas should be best presented in the MongoDB schema by denormalizing or consolidating tables, and then synchronizing and transforming that data between relational database and MongoDB. So what is the cost of running on legacy systems? Or the best way to, I'd say, ask this is, what is the cost of doing nothing at all? If you've never heard of the data and innovation reoccurring tax, you're probably paying it. It's called a tax because it doesn't go away on its own. It's levied by unnecessarily complex data architecture that demands increasing amounts of time and resources just for maintenance as user expectations and application expectations grow. Dirt compounds over time as your data architecture becomes more complex. And we have found that many of our customers have applications running in relational databases that they would like to re-platform for either technical or commercial reasons. And with Relational Migrator, we help to remove risk and accelerate development. Let's first understand a need for Relational Migrator. Why did we build this tool? Well, we know organizationally it's hard to change, adopt new tech, and develop new approaches across teams that are used to working in a certain manner. Plus, today, the data generated by modern applications is semi-structured or unstructured. It's highly variable, and it's changing rapidly. So it's a poor fit for rigid rows and columns. So what's the outcome MongoDB can drive? We see organizations accelerate development by 3 to 5x. We can drive innovation faster. And we can cut costs or more while at the same time reducing business risk. So why MongoDB? We help agile teams move with incredible speed. No predefined, single rigid structure like relational. As soon as code is written, I can deliver a prototype to the business owner. For complicated data scenarios, we not only excel, it's where MongoDB can accomplish things that other platforms can't. This includes cloud database providers. In fact, MongoDB delivers more power for less money. And with cloud, we can help your organization prepare for complicated, unknown futures by providing stability and flexibility. And the goal of the database is to support any type of workload that your business ends up demanding. Of course, we also run everywhere. So why now? That's a question I always try to answer within my team. We're always trying to figure out why now. What's the motivator? Why change? Why do anything? From a technology side, I would say simplified tech stack. Yes, other databases do this, but there are issues and limitations and frustrations that come along with other approaches. We think if you encounter less of this, you'll be more encouraged to keep going. You don't want to get a year in and then realize a critical limitation has to be addressed by another technology. And on innovation, when you can prototype in minutes without the unnecessary overhead of data modeling bureaucracy, you get more innovations. In fact, developers will try things that they may not have otherwise. So to sum it up, migrating is a lot of work, costs time and money. Good MongoDB schema design is the key to success. And software teams can focus on innovation and not learning how to try to transfer data. So let's take a look at the migration lifecycle. Patterns of application modernization. So my typical customers, this is usually the top 3 scenarios that we're kind of working through. Number 1 would be the very basic of a full modernization. We want to re-platform, basically move over to MongoDB. The second pattern that we often see is a more gradual approach where we're actually taking an application and carving off a piece of functionality. So from a monolithic application, I'm going to now rewrite, re-implement, and then deploy microservices running on top of a more modern database like MongoDB. An example of this would be catalog functionality or content management functionality, maybe user-generated for content reviews, and changing those into microservices, running on a more modern database while leaving some piece of the monolithic application where it stands with a legacy system. And the third approach that we often call an operational data store, which is consolidating data from multiple legacy systems, or occasionally even a single legacy system, and moving it or mirroring it into MongoDB. So an example of this is mainframe offloading. Single views are often an example of this, where we're combining data from multiple different legacy systems into MongoDB. All right, what are the stages of migration? There are 4 stages. 1, first identifying the workload. Deciding what it is that you want to migrate. What application or piece of an application should you prioritize for the migration? The second is on the database side. So updating the schema, figuring out how the existing schema, relational schema, should best be presented in the document model. You don't want to just do a one-to-one move because you're not going to see the benefits or a lot of the benefits of MongoDB. The third step is modernizing the code, because migrating a workload is not just about the database layer, but it's also about the application. So talking about our idiomatic drivers, where the application can now talk to the database natively. Maybe you want to layer in, now's the time you want to layer in GraphQL, or you want to expand the functionality of the database and use triggers, and really sort of understand the entire developer platform and use all of its resources. And then finally, the last step is migrating the data, to actually move the data from the legacy system onto MongoDB, cut over the application or the pieces of the application to run on the new system. All right, how do we use Relational Migrator? The first thing you should know about Relational Migrator is, it is a tool that's going to help smooth out the process of migrating. It is designed to be used by experienced architects who understand what the structure of the data is looking like. It's evolving. We're still building it. We introduced it at MongoDB World 22, and we're still adding new functionality to it based on your feedback. What Relational Migrator is not, it's not a silver bullet. You can't just point it at your existing application portfolio and expect it's going to do all the work. There's still a lot of thinking and planning that needs to be done and figuring out what to prioritize in your application portfolio. Migrator is also not a substitute for experience and MongoDB knowledge and good advice from the experts. We can help you with that. In fact, we have teams of people that can help you with that. All right, so the first thing you do with Relational Migrator is schema analysis of the existing relational schema. We want to take take Migrator can connect to any instance of Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, or Postgres databases of live data. In an upcoming release, currently, because that's the last time I did this slide, we've actually currently can now take an input as a DDL file, a schema definition file, and rather than connecting to the database. The user can select the tables that are in scope for the migration. They'll be able to look at the tables and the foreign key relationships between them, import all the information into the tool and understand what the schema is going to look like inside of Relational Migrator. The next step is understanding what the schema is going to look like in MongoDB. So Relational Migrator will help you determine the relational model and how that should map to a document DB model. And it'll give you the opportunity to change the mappings to take better advantage of MongoDB to split or merge tables across a collection. So for example, taking certain tables and perhaps embedding details for some of those tables as subdocuments into a single collection. In the demo, you will see a side-by-side diagram of both the relational and the MongoDB models, which updates as we change the mappings. And then finally, once you're happy with the mappings and the schema model on the MongoDB side, the next step is the data synchronization. All right, so Relational Migrator will replicate data from those supported databases to MongoDB. Now it can be used by any endpoint, which is Atlas or Enterprise, and it will use those mapping definitions from the last step and basically transform the data over into a MongoDB schema. Once it's synchronized, we just move it and the tool's done. So in a future release of Migrator, we'll be able to support continuous migration for something like an operational data store, where we actually want to keep the source system, the relational system, running for a while we basically keep the data in sync over into MongoDB. All right, let's check out the demo from the product team. Can you guys hear anything? No sound? Okay, so we've connected to the tool. We've connected to our Oracle instance running out there. We're going to put in a username and password and hit connect. Pretty simple. Once we've authenticated to our source, we can now select the tables that are in scope for the migration, and we'll click next. We're going to give it a project name. And we're going to change maybe some of the casing to match what we want in the new document model. Once we click next, you can see the two different diagrams that I was explaining before, where we have the relational on the top, the MongoDB at the bottom. So now we're going to take a look at the orders table and then the order details table. So maybe what we want to do now is actually consolidate. Maybe we just want to include the order details into the orders document when it's created. So we'll go ahead and delete the the order details, and we'll click add, and we're going to add an array to a parent document, and we're going to select orders as the parent and order details as the sub. And you can see just there, it's embedded as an array. So everything looks good. Now let's look at the products. So maybe we want some details from the products table to now be included in the orders document. So I'm going to click add. I'm going to click the fields in the documents, and the source is now going to be products. And I don't have to take everything. I'm just going to actually only take exactly what I need to include into the orders document. Hit save and close, and everything looks good. Now this is exactly how I want it to be best presented in the document model. So we'll zoom out. We're happy with both of how our schemas look like currently, and we're pretty much ready to cut over. So we'll click the Data Migration tab. We're going to set up a new sync job. We've already got the source information in there. We're now connecting over into MongoDB Atlas. So I've already got my connection string in, and I'm going to hit connect. So you can see I have two options already. I have a one-time or I have a continuous. And I can actually limit, or I can do all the rows. I can limit rows. I can actually drop the database that's in place, so the collection that's in place before the migration if I wanted to do a complete clean cutover. And so that looks good, and I'll hit start. This is a very small subset of data, so we're actually just going to wait for it to do its complete synchronization. So my source URL, my destination URL, the sync is already in progress. It's a one-time, it's currently running. And so we'll wait for all that information to actually be imported over. And we'll just give it a few minutes. Like I said, it's only a few documents. There we go. Migration is complete. And let's log into Atlas, and we'll look at, there they are. There's everything the way that we actually presented it and mapped it out into the Relational Migrator tool. So if I click on orders, I get more of the details of exactly what I wanted. So I consolidated those tables down, and I'm getting the information in, and I've added actually some of that information into the products collection. And I can see them there. And just validating that all that information is there, and it looks good. That's it. That's Relational Migrator. So, things that are coming up. Roadmap, continuous replication. You've already saw that in the code. It's already there, so it's a feature that's coming, and it is pretty much ready to go. The other things I just want to call out are post-migration verification, authentication, application code generation, and schema recommendations. So, to just sort of help you follow the best practices as you're moving your data over. And then finally, Atlas integration. Today, it is it's an install, so it can be run on a server, it can be run in multiple different places, but eventually we'll have this built into Atlas as an integration, as a hosted solution. So that's Relational Migrator. Thank you all very much. This feedback matters not only to me, but everybody that works hard at .local, so please rate this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm actually really excited about this product because I remember when I started working as an SA, everybody wanted to know how to do this, and we didn't, what do we have that we could help people with? And I got that question all the time, and I was like, well, here's this nifty white paper. But this is so much better than white paper. Does anybody have any questions for Chris? Great.
So what about if you have stored procedure? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so anything stored will not be migrated over. So you would actually have to, handle that manually. Yeah, it doesn't carry anything over. It's only taking the data, transforming it, and moving it.
Okay. Let's just take a second. Who had the question here? Okay, the gentleman behind you, sorry. Here you go.
Thanks. So for continuous migration, what's the delay, let's say, if you do it on-prem between Oracle and Mongo?
So we're actually going to utilize Kafka. Now, if you have your own instance of running Kafka, we'll be able to take those change streams. So as soon as data is written, it will be written over into the destination. The other thing that I know is an option with professional services. If you don't have a Kafka running in your environment, we can actually stand up a containerized version to help support those change streams for that continuous replication.
Are there any more questions? Okay, we have a few more here.
Hi. So does this tool support for relational table that lie in many shard node?
Right now, let's see. I have not come across that use case yet, but if you want to get with me afterwards, I can give you a business card. I can follow up with some of the product owners and get that information for you. Yeah. Great.
Okay, we've got a question here.
Hey, so what if you need to, or what if your target collection is like maybe a non-standard collection, like a time series collection? Are you able to, or I guess how are you able to customize collections as your target ones? Also, like index-wise, like can you set up indices on the target collection beforehand, that sort of stuff?
Well, I think the idea there would be the data wouldn't be there yet, but you could predefine something if you needed to. But obviously, this tool right now isn't it's not available for you to just go download and sort of work with it on your own. It is usually packaged with some sort of professional services where, like I said, we've got somebody with, I guess, best practices when it comes to schema design and understanding, depending on your use case, what that's going to look like, how that data is going to be transformed, and really how we're going to set it up for success.
Actually, that's a good point. Like, we are trying to make sure everybody has a positive experience with it, and not just migrate their stuff, because obviously it has to sort of, relational data should be modeled in a certain way. Data is accessed together, stored together. So if somebody, I guess that's why we have it with a package. So if somebody's interested in using this, how would they start? They contact
Contacting somebody like myself,
or somebody like me, and I'll figure it out.
yeah, or your account executive, and we can actually get you in front of somebody in professional services that can actually put a package together that's designed for your specific use case.
Oh, sorry.
Roy's got a
Roy has a question.
yeah.
I go to Roy for questions.
I'm going to add some context. We actually have an early access program that any MongoDB customer with a relational task like that can sign up for. All we ask is that you commit to providing us feedback. You don't have to be a reference. You don't have to do anything else. As long as you're willing to test it, provide us feedback, we can get you set up with the early access program. Okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Roy.
much. Okay, so any last questions? Well then, please rate the survey. Thank you so much, Chris. That was great.
Thank you, everybody.